fun to see so many people here, and I'm excited that I get to start off this trio of talks. It's been a long day being nervous, and the moment is finally here. So I will tell you about how to get the whole team to care about code quality, not just the developers, but the whole team. First, a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Sweden and been living in the Netherlands for 10 years now. I love all types of games, video games, escape rooms, board games, you name it. I enjoy it. I also really love baking, also to spoil my friends with the baked goods. And to balance that a little bit, I also do a lot of bouldering. And professionally, I'm a software architect and developer at CGI, where I do a lot of work for various clients that we are working with. But something that's really important for me is code quality. It's something that makes me feel like I can be a really good developer if I get to write good quality code. And I want our teams to also write good quality code, because in the long term, it will save us a lot of headaches. So yeah, who else here cares about code quality? Yeah, quite a lot of people. Makes sense. Otherwise, I would not have expected to see you at such a conference. But why is it then sometimes still so difficult to make it happen? You know, I guess the PO or Scrum Master just doesn't get it. There's no budget, no time. Or maybe just our developers in the team don't see eye to eye, have different opinions. Or the team maybe doesn't even know what they're missing. So why should we care? As I said, in the long run, it will save us a lot of headaches. It will give us more effective code, more reliable code that's easy to test, easy to maintain, easy to read, easy to learn. And what is code quality then actually, just so we have a bit of a baseline what we are talking about? For me, it is clean code that follows the best practices, which is tested, it is streamlined, there's not a lot of duplications, and it's easy to understand. So if we then can agree that that's roughly what code quality is, then how can we get there? How can we make sure that we can write high-quality code, and especially that the whole team will care about it? To do this, I will go through 3 different tools, SonarQube and Manbolt, which are more tools that lets you analyze the code and see what the current status is. And Azure DevOps, as an example, how you then can work with these tools to make sure they are part of your processes. And SonarQube and Manbolt are just examples, Azure DevOps as well. There's other alternatives for SonarQube. There's also Sonar Cloud. For Azure, you could use maybe Jira or GitLab. So don't feel like this is something you need to specifically choose. It's just an example of how you can use these kind of tools in your processes. So starting off with SonarQube, what is it? It is a tool that lets us analyze our code. This is an example of what it can look like when you're seeing when it's analyzing your code. So it's looking at some different metrics. An example is if there's any security hotspots, what is that a security hotspot? Because this number doesn't tell us a whole lot. Luckily, Sonar also helps us reason about what it is, where in the code it is, and even can give suggestions about what to do with it. It can also give information about your test coverage, so how many lines of code are covered by your unit tests. This is one of the projects I've worked at from the start, so I'm really proud of it. As I mentioned, I'm a bit of a gamer. I like setting high scores, and this test coverage I'm really happy with. It's not something you need to strive towards in your projects. It's more how to see it and working towards it, and especially make sure that we are not declining in what our code already is. And similarly here, you can dive into the numbers to see exactly where the test coverage is or where it is missing. This information you can also get in a lot of the IDEs that you might be using. So it's, as I said, SonarQube is not the one solution, but it's an example of what kind of information you can find about your code to measure what is your code quality. Manbolt is another example. It shows an overview of the dependencies we are using. Because, if you're a developer, you know that we will be using a lot of third-party libraries. If we aren't, then we are probably doing a whole lot more work than we need to. But it shows in a rough overview what dependencies are we using, what is the status of them, are there any security risks, what are the licenses, so we quickly can know, do we need to take action, do we need to work on this. So with these tools, we can get an overview of what the status of our code is, and we can integrate this in our processes with Azure DevOps. How this works is you probably have a pipeline which runs your code, and then you can also tie in these tools into your pipeline. Azure DevOps is already integrated with them, so if you're making a new pipeline or extending an existing one, you can just search for these tasks, and there will be examples. You just need to fill in your own parameters where it's hosted and how to reach it, and it will insert that in your pipeline. So that is quite easy. So what can we then do further with this? Of course, as developers, we are don't always have free reign over a project, sadly. We often have someone that tells us exactly what they want, when they want it. I think it's quite common nowadays to work with Scrum, that the product owner wants to have some input about what we are doing in a sprint, and they very rarely want us to solve technical debt, sadly. But there's some things we can do on our own without their input to make sure that at least we can slowly raise our quality, or at least make sure it doesn't decline. So the easiest way to have good code quality is to not merge bad code. And we can do that by setting up some rules for a pull request to make sure, for example, that we need to have someone to review it before we are allowed to merge it into master, because you should at least never merge directly into master, then you never know what might go wrong. This is an example from one of the projects I'm working on, and there are different checks you can set up. Example we have is that at least one person needs to review it. The code needs to compile, because what's the point of merging code that doesn't compile into main? And if someone has comments on your pull request, those also needs to be resolved before we can merge it. But on top of these, you could also have some more optional checks. One of our optional checks is code coverage, because we want to strive to at least have a code coverage of 80% when we're making new code. This is optional because sometimes maybe you're making code that can't be tested or won't be tested for whatever reason, but it is tied in with the Sonar pipeline. So that pipeline will then make a comment on this pull request saying, hey, the code coverage is not above standard, keep this in mind. And then you have to reason about why you should fix it or why not before it is merged. So that is something we can do as a development team to make sure our processes work better. But we don't only want to work with code quality with the development team, we want to do it with the whole team. And something I know about the non-technical people, the Scrum Masters and product owners, is they really love numbers. And they love to see numbers go up. So that is a good mindset to have in mind when you want to discuss something with them. How can we show them what the impact is and what we are doing to make our lives easier and then also their lives easier. One tool we are using is dashboards in Azure DevOps to track what we are doing and how we are doing it. This is an example of what type of stories we are doing every sprint. We have color-coded to get an easy insight. So green for new features, which is what the product owner always wants. Yellow for architecture analysis to look further into the future. Black for technical depth and refactoring. And red for bugs. And then we can also see easily per sprint what we are doing. And if we see that we really only focus on the green things, maybe we need to reevaluate to see, can we get some time to also solve some of the technical debt? Otherwise, we will eventually be buried in this. And being able to show exactly what we are doing to the product owner, it makes it easy for them to reason with them and get some time to solve these things we want to solve. Also important to note is that we track both the full state of the backlog, but also new recently opened items. Because if you see that there's been no bugs opened for a very long time, it probably means that we are not testing the application enough. Because even though I want to be a really good software developer, I also know that it's very difficult to write software without bugs. So if you're not testing, or if you don't get any new bugs, you're probably not testing enough. And similarly, for looking at the SonarQube, make sure that you align with the team and also with the product owner. What are our targets? What are we aiming for? And how are we going to get there? Because if you're starting with a code coverage of 20%, it doesn't really make sense to aim towards 80 directly. Do smaller steps. How are we getting there? My team do every sprint a software quality meeting where we look what are our current status, what do we want to improve, and what do we find pressing at the moment, that we can, as the team, go to our product owner and tell them, hey, we all agree that this is what we want to do. And then, because you have a lot more input and force, and you are on one page, there's more likely that they will agree to solve these things as well. And also try to tell them exactly what they are getting out for this and why you want to pick up these things. Maybe you want to create more efficient code, improve the performance. Maybe you're preparing for a bigger change down the road. Maybe you will have a new person joining the team soon, which means that you want to make the code as easy for them to get into as possible. Because in the long run, it is a team effort. We are not very rarely developing code on our own. So we want to make sure everyone is involved, because no one likes to be told what to do. Everyone wants to be involved with how we are doing something. And to having these discussions and together as a team setting the goals will help to reach that point that we can actually have the time and agreement to work on the issues we find important. And of course, making sure that our code is performing and at the very least not declining in quality. So, short summary, try to align at least the dev team so that you all see eye to eye and know what targets you're working towards and how you want to use the tools you are working on. I one time talked with another team at the company, and they really proudly told me that they had SonarQube set up. And so I asked them, okay, that's cool. What are you doing with it? No, nothing, it's just there. Yeah, just because it's there doesn't solve anything. You actually have to take action and think about what you want to use from it. Set goals and targets so that you know when we are looking at this, what are we seeing, when are we doing good, when could we do better, and when do we have to take a step back and say, hey, this is not going in the right direction. And analyze the current status, what can we do now, what is important now, and where do we want to reach in the long term. And finally, make sure you involve the product owner, or Scrum Master, or whoever gives the input of what you want to do in your sprints, because in the end, they are the one that are going to look at the sprint and say, well, these stories are not so important, we can do them next sprint. And then the next sprint, you will hear the same thing again and again, and you will have a full backlog of just bugs and technical debt that will never be picked up. So hopefully, this will give you some inspiration of how to help align the team and how to get everyone to care about code quality. And I thank you all for listening.